So thanks everybody for being here. We're still on Zoom, and I think we ran our first real Zoom event, which we've done a few of since, was our AGM last year. It was well attended. I think it went pretty smoothly. So hoping for the same tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paul Rogers. I'm fortunate to be the board chair, and I'm joined tonight by members of the board, as well as Kathy Saunders, who's the hero in the office, keeping it all going. Kathy, give us a wave. I can see you right now. That's great. So we're, I think for tonight, just to get everyone's expectations set, when you do an AGM, there's always a bit of official business, and it sounds pretty official with the motions and the things we need to do to keep it proper. But I think what we're also hoping for tonight is to get some engagement from the group. Dave's going to talk about the procedures in a minute for the meeting, but there's not so many of us here that we can't have some good discussion around some topics that you're keen to talk about. So hopefully when the time's right, we can open up some good discussion. We've been trying to do that throughout the year, both to be informed and educated, but as well to talk about some of the future projects that we're thinking about doing. So that's worked well to have people. We've obviously got really committed, smart people, and so if this will be a great meeting if around the key topics we can get people offering some perspective. I'm thinking about things like our return to snow plans, our possible affiliation with CADs, and so on. So anyway, so bear with us on some of the official business, and we'll make sure that as part of the discussion we get to talk about some of the future and some of the important things for Track 3 as well. So Dave, can I flip it over to you just to talk about the next slide for the navigating Zoom? I think people are I'm probably more expert than they were a year ago, but probably still a couple reminders.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this slide as I also watch the waiting room to see if there's others coming in. But yeah, a few points of business before we bring the meeting to order. As Paul said, we had a lot of success last year using Zoom, and we've just got some a few pointers here. So as people come in, I'm doing a mute all, but as much as possible, if you could stay off mute. But if there's something that comes up during the course of the conversation and we're a small enough group, we can you can just unmute and participate. There's you see the participants icon at the bottom. Hopefully your screen, you can raise your hand to ask a question. At appropriate times. We have a chat function, so really encourage people to type your questions in the chat. You won't be able to do individual chats on here, but most of you are probably aware of that. And then we'll monitor the chat as close as we can throughout the discussion, but definitely towards the end of different sessions, we'll be able to do that. If your name isn't accurate in Zoom, if you wouldn't mind just following the instructions here to rename yourself, it makes it easier when we're trying to respond to people that have questions. Yeah, we're recording it for viewing later. And yeah, if you have, you want to have a different view, is it the top right that you can change it, change your view? I'm not quite sure. I haven't done that view change, but I think that's about it. I'll just pass it over to you. I was half monitoring the waiting room and try and go through.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great, Dave. I think I didn't introduce Dave. I hope everyone knows him. Dave was the featured first star of our initial Zoom session we did last spring, along with Unstoppable Tracy. Dave's a former athlete, current board member, and also one of our great volunteers. Does most of his work in the Beaver Valley program. So thanks, Dave. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Dave, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, got it.
So just and I'll ask. We've got Chris Rain on as well. I'm going to cover the meeting rules for this AGM. And you guys Chris can keep me honest if I get anything wrong, but we'll, as I said earlier, we're planning on using, we've got Q&A in various sections, but also at the meeting, at the end of the meeting, we've left room for questions. I think Dave's already mentioned that we'll feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll keep an eye on it and bring it, go to it at the right time. In terms of making motions, there's a couple things we could do here, and I'll maybe just what I'm going to make is a proposal for how we will do motions, and I'll ask anyone who has an objection maybe just to raise your hand. But just to keep the meeting going quickly, I was going to ask for 2 volunteers who could make the motions that were provided in the notice for the meeting beforehand. We would have a first and a second, and we would rely on those volunteers. And rather than having to go on each motion to get a first and second. So if to do this, you have to be comfortable with all the motions, which are, that we're going to use Zoom for the meeting, that we're going to review our financials, we're going to appoint auditors. So we're going to do anyway, I think you guys know all is there. I think possibly the only controversial motion, I don't want to prejudge anything, but we do have a motion in here about our possible affiliation with CADS. So anyway, I'll just ask and see maybe you could come off mute if you're, or maybe how about this, in the chat, if you're willing to be one of those people that would make a motion throughout the meeting. If you could just offer that in the chat, it's a good chance for us to kind of keep an eye on the chat. And I'll see if anyone's willing to do that. The alternative is we can do as we've done before, and that for each motion, we're looking for hands to be raised, and it's just a little more work, but we can do it. I'll pause for a second, just see if anyone's volunteering. While you're thinking about that,
I see a hand up there, Paul.
Do you? Okay.
Well, it went away.
I'm not seeing all the hands. Who's got their hand up?
It disappeared on me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Patricia.
JF had his hand up.
JF had his hand up. Okay, so I'll have JF as making making the motions, and I'll look for another.
Patricia has her hand up.
Yes, yeah,
that's JF. Yep. Same.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
But last year we had like the motion being first and second through the chat, so that worked pretty well as well. It's not that much longer anyway. Okay.
You know what, JF, that's fine. I'm happy to do it that way. We'll as we get to each motion, we'll do it that way. That's fine. So then, in terms of, we are relying on Zoom polling for the to vote on the motions tonight. So Dave is monitoring the polls, and Kathy is tracking the results as our scrutineer. We did have, I think, 3 proxies submitted for this meeting. I'm gonna call on Paul Dowsett to see how he wants to handle that. Paul, one possibility is you could just email Kathy your intentions on the votes, because you're, I think, holding your vote as well as 3 others. And that's assuming that the 3 people that gave you proxy did not want to rescind it at this time. So I'll just, Paul, do you want to let us know? Maybe come off mute.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I'll just send Kathy a quick email with each vote. That's fine.
Okay. Kathy checking with you. Is that all right? I'm going to assume yes.
Yes, that's fine.
That's great. Okay, perfect. So, and just a reminder that it's 1 vote per connection. The exception being that for Paul, who's got some proxies, and I didn't hear anyone rescinding a proxy. So I'll assume that Paul's got 3 additional votes. And then I think the rest of that's straightforward. I'm going to chair the meeting. I'm not planning to vote unless we have a tie. And that's it. Chris, how did I do? Everything all right?
Yeah, you did really well.
All right, yeah. Super, thank you. All right, Dave, can you move us to the next slide? So at 6:12 p.m. on Thursday, October 24th, and on 21st, I now declare the 2021 AGM for Ontario Track 3 Association in session. We actually have a new name, and that should be reflected there. But that's let's keep going. So that's where the meeting is now officially commenced. Dave, can you go to the next slide? So for the purposes of this meeting, Chris, who's our board secretary, has been appointed secretary, and he will be keeping the minutes for the meeting, and they will be available on the Track 3 website once they are approved. Next slide, Dave. Chris, over to you.
Hi, everyone. So the notice of the meeting was sent pursuant to the bylaws. So it was to be no later than September 30th, 2021. Pursuant to section 4 of the bylaws, any voting member must be the legal age of majority. Either the person has made an application for membership, the person is an employee, director, officer, or life member of the association. And by board decision, volunteers, one member of a student's family, or committee members can be members without application. So we're just following the bylaws to see who will have standing to vote at the AGM, and we'll take attendance for the purpose of this AGM based on your registered name on Zoom.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. So Dave, so official notice. So we have proof of notice. The calling the meeting has now been duly filed, and a copy of the notice will be kept by the secretary with the records of this meeting. I now declare this meeting regularly called and properly constituted for the transaction of business. And with that, we are just going to do what we did last year, and this is also a good chance for us just to try it's an easy motion for us to get our feet under us on voting and the polling via Zoom. So I am, first of all, the motion is to acknowledge the special nature of this AGM due to the current circumstances regarding COVID-19, and that we'll approve holding the 2020 AGM online via Zoom. So I'll ask within the chat for somebody to make this motion. So the first is from JF. Thank you. Looking for a second on this motion.
I'll second Walter Simone.
All right, Walter, I'll take it. Heidi, I'll come on. We'll come back to you later. Thank you. So second is to Walter. Okay, Dave, can you launch the poll for this vote, this motion? Just checking with you, Dave. I know you're probably working on it.
Sorry, I was talking. I was on mute. What I was saying is I got a technical issue. I'm just going to resolve the issue. And
Sure.
If you could do maybe a raise of hands and count it, I'm going to try and resolve the issue.
Okay.
Sorry, it was working before the meeting, and now it's giving me a hard time. So just 1 minute.
Okay. I know it was working before the meeting. It's just our luck, huh? All right. Mike is offering Mike Robinson, thank you. You're offering some help, technical help. So we're actually click on reactions, not participants, to raise your hand. So under reactions, so that's on the bottom of your screen. That's where you can raise your hand. Is everyone seeing that? Jack has got his hand up. I'm seeing Jack. Thank you, Jack. Lots of hands up. Okay. Kathy, you are the scrutineer. I'm going to put you under some pressure here. I think it's fairly safe that this motion is supported. I see lots of hands up. It's a pretty simple motion. I'll just ask if there are any objections to the motion. Hearing none, this motion is carried. Okay. With that, I will turn it over to my colleague Fayez, who's going to give us a financial update and talk about our auditors. I think most of you know Fayez. If you've been at any of the last AGMs, Fayez has been serving us as a volunteer in a number of programs, including Ockley Valley and Beaver. He's also a course conductor, and he's been on the board for at least, I think, 5 years, maybe 6 years now, and he took over as CFO when 2 years ago. So he's doing a great job. So George is offering that that you can lower your hands through the same link. Seems like people are on to that. Thank you, George. Fayez, over to you. And Dave, could I get you to move us forward to the next slide? Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. You can hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Great. And I think it's been 4 years on the board. Yeah, 4 years on the board. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And I'll quickly go through the Treasurer's report with starting off with our year-end financial statements. I believe the financial statements were sent out a week ago to everyone, but I'll quickly go through some of the key points. You'll notice from the balance sheet for our April 30th, 2021 financial statements, we ended the year off with about $462,000 in the bank. In my recent recollection, I think that's the highest cash balance that we have had at a year end. So considering everything that was going on in the world and the fact that businesses and charities were struggling, we were able to sustain and grow our cash balance through a bunch of different measures, which I'll go through as I go through the financials. At the end of the year, we had about $40,000 that was still owed to us at the end of the year, all of which was collected post year end, all I think within 30 or 45 days post year end. No major changes on our inventory or prepaid expenses or capital assets. We made a conscious decision not to invest in capital assets last year under the circumstances. One new item you'll see under the liabilities is deferred revenue. Some parents may remember that last year we collected fees early on in the year, and then once the season got canceled, we gave parents the option of just deferring their fee. Getting a refund was one choice. Second choice was donating it to Track 3, which some parents gracefully did. And the third choice was to defer it to next year. So we had about $8,000 being deferred to be used towards this year's programming. And then another new item you'd see in the liabilities is under long-term debt of $40,000. A lot of you might have heard on the news, there was a government program called SEBA, where businesses and charities could take a loan of $60,000. And if they paid it back within by December 31st, 2023, so next December, $20,000 of it would be forgivable. That was opened up to charities at some point during the year, and Track 3 looked at it as an opportunity to add to our cash balance by $20,000. The auditors chose to recognize that revenue on these year's financial statements, and we will be sure to pay back the $40,000 so that we do get the $20,000 forgiven. Moving on to the income statement. You'll notice that our revenue is lower than prior year at 308 or just under 309,000. One of the large differences is the $159,000 in-kind donations. Those aren't actually cash donations, but the auditors recognize it as revenue. So that's from Ski Hills donating lift tickets to us. So they recognize it as revenue and then also recognize it as an expense, so it offsets each other. So that's a big part of the difference. And then also the fact that we weren't able to have any events last year, our usual golf event or ski day event or fall event, which usually brings in a significant amount of money we weren't able to have. But, you know, we were able to take advantage of government programs. So we participated in the rent subsidy while it was available and the wage subsidy, which brought in about $82,000, which made up for some of the fact that we weren't able to have events last year. So $309,000. But with all of that, you know, we took a very cautious decision to control our expenses. With there not being a season, it helped a little bit because we didn't have any of the expenses that come along with having a season. So that decision was kind of made for us, and so we were able to reduce our expenses significantly at just under $240,000. So at the end of the year, we ended up positive of $68,677,000. So all things considering, from the year that we were in, we consider this to be a pretty big success, and we're very happy that we were able to sustain and also have a cash balance that puts us in a position to be able to cover all of this year's expenses. And then gives us the opportunity to worry about fundraising for next year's expenses and future growth of the program. On top of the year-to-date or the year-end financials, to give everyone just a quick summary of how we are doing year-to-date. We're now 5 months past our year end. So as of the end of September, we have a cash balance north of $500,000. So our cash balance has continued to grow. Our revenue in is 30% over what our year-to-date target is. And our expenses are 22% under what our year-to-date target is, which is resulting in our net funds or net profit for the year to date to be about 300% over target for this year. So with the support of the board, our members, and the office, we have had 5 months of great success so far with this year for the first 5 months, and we hope for that to continue over the next 7 months to have an even better report at next year's AGM. With that, there you go. With that, I would like to ask for a motion that the audited financial statements for Ontario Track 3 for the period ending April 30th, 2021, which has been prepared by the appointed auditor, RLB Chartered Professional Accountants, be accepted as presented. Can we get a first?
Fayez, just a reminder, we are going to ask for a first in the comments in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll look for that.
First is from
looks
JF.
like JF.
And then let's take Heidi can be second. Thank you.
Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi. And thank you, Brad. We'll come back to you later. So we are, Fayez, just a bit of an announcement back to the protocols for the meeting. We're having troubles with polls. So we are going to rely on the hands up feature to support the motion. So again, we'll be looking for people to raise their hands to support the motion. A reminder for folks that that's at the bottom of your screen, the reactions button.
It looks like we have quite a few hands raised.
Let's give it another minute, Faiz. And I think in our protocol here, we'll be careful to ask for anyone that has an objection or concern with the motion each time, just to make sure that we're being thorough.
So, okay, Paul, you want to see if there's any objections?
You've got enough consensus on raised hands?
Yeah, there's.
Excellent. That's great. Well, it was a very good report. So are there any objections to the motion that Faiz has raised?
Yeah, just remember to put your hand down if you've got it up already. I've got 19 yes, and I've got 8 non.
Sorry, yeah, one more time, Dave.
Oh, just have to let some. Yeah, 8 hands up right now for 19 yes.
Is it possible everyone didn't lower their hand?
Okay, now I've got 5. No. Okay. What I think I'll do, Paul, is I'll see if I can lower everyone's hands and then see if there's an abstain in there. Just
Paul,
Yeah.
I counted 24 in the first round and I see 6 hands now,
okay, thank
or
you.
5 now. It was 6. Oh, there goes another one.
4.
Oh, 6. 6
5,
hands
6.
up now, and I had 24 count on hands before.
And
So
we
that
have
makes the 30.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Kathy.
That's great. So that motion's carried, Faiz.
Thank you. The next motion, just before we, I guess, get to the motion, we had a really good experience with RLB accountants this past year, and I think this was their second year. Yep, their second year doing our financials for us. So with that, I'd like to request a motion that RLB Chartered Professional Accountants be appointed auditors for Ontario Track 3 for the 2021/2022 fiscal year ending April 30th, 2022. Can we get a first and a second through the chat? It looks like Brad is our first. And Lynette is our second.
Excellent. So we're raising
And,
hands. We're raising hands again. To support the motion. How are we doing, Kathy and Dave?
We have enough to carry the motion and just.
Pretty innocuous. I'm going to just ask if there's any concerns with the motion. Hearing none, Faiz, I think we can consider that motion passed as well.
Great, thank you very much, everyone.
Hey, Faiz, just a shout out to you. You work hard for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. So I think, Dave, could I get you to flip the slide?
Yep.
So just to talk about a little bit about what's been happening. There's really 3 big topics that I wanted to get into tonight, and I'm going to get some help from some of the board here to talk through them. But I think before I get into it, too much on the topics. I just wanted to talk about some of the highlights, and I also wanted to start with some thanks as I did last year. But I think it's always good to recognize that we're a volunteer powered organization, and we can't do what we do without all of you that work so hard as volunteers. Also want to pay tribute to our founder, Doug Carey, who passed away this past year. We've spoken of him on other calls during the year, but it wouldn't be through people like Doug we wouldn't be here. I want to pay my deepest and sincere thanks to the board. It was Fayez gave a good report, but it obviously wasn't an easy year. It wasn't an easy year for anyone, and certainly not for the parents and our athletes. So some of the decisions we had to make in the last year around the season were difficult, and I think our board were consistent in their engagement. They offered a lot, and I think we continued to. We developed a bit of a mantra that we wouldn't sit still, and we would work hard at coming back even better. So people like George Anderson continued to work on our technology, and one of the things I think we really improved in the last year is our approach to fundraising. George helped us along with some other support from people like Richard Boyle's also on our board to do an implementation of Salesforce. So we've got a very professional approach to how we manage our donors. We worked on, George also worked on our relationship with Canada Helps and optimized some of that relationship, which is about 20 years old and is important for us. So I think we made some real strides in the background. We had, many of you will know, we had a contractor working with us to support our fundraising, Samantha Correa. She was on a contract and she's no longer with us, which is, we'll miss Sam. So the board will be reviewing kind of what's the way forward on fundraising, and do we go the right route by bringing in a specialized position to be in the office with Kathy and concentrate on what's a very unique area. So that ends up being being able to keep everything going. We had to really continue to work hard on our fundraising, and Fayez gave a good report. Obviously, we missed some things like events, but we have some things that really went well. We've done very well with trusts and foundations. We continue to get great support through our partnership with Funding Innovations and Metro Food Basic Stores. Just to give that a bit of profile for everyone here, we're now approaching. Some of you may recall that about 2 years ago we hit the $500,000 mark since inception of that program. And we're now approaching $750,000 raised through the easels in Metro Food Basic Stores. So we pretty soon we'll be setting our sights on $1 million, and we're continuing to work hard on it, and we're having our best year ever. And that's after a tough year. The pandemic, our easels were down last year, so we were off on that key source of funding. But we worked hard to get it back up. And in fact, we have more stores, more easels now than we have ever had. So really grateful to Metro and to our partners at Funding Innovations who make it happen. And for those of you who know Scott Teichowitz, he worked really closely with Steve Jones to get that going quite a few years ago now. I think it's 6 or 7 years ago. And it's been a really, really important relationship for us. Some of the and I guess in terms of my acknowledgements and thanks, I can never get past acknowledging Kathy. We're back down to having just one staff, and it's a critical time of year. I think you all appreciate that, whether you're a parent registering your kid and your child, your athlete, or you're a volunteer getting signed up. You know we have lots to do to coordinate. But in terms of registrations and a million other things. So my deepest and sincerest thanks on behalf of all the board, and I think I can say all membership, to Kathy for everything she's doing for us. There are some things that continue to move forward that we've talked about in past updates. We are continuing to look at multi-season programming. Dave's working. Dave, who's been speaking to you tonight, has been doing a little bit of work there. It's not been terrifically active, but we continue to keep our eye on it. Barb Hopewell, who's with us tonight, I'm excited to say she's come forward. Talk about being volunteer powered. She came forward with an idea for a cross-country ski program. So it's not another season, but it's another thing we're going to try. So we're going to launch a pilot in cross-country under Barb's leadership this coming winter, which we're really excited about. So, and then I think the only other thing to touch on is we're always, although we're pretty lean, we always have to be thinking about our, the people that can contribute either at a board level or in other volunteer roles. So we're looking at succession all the time and trying to make sure we're doing the right things there. So that's just a bit of overall what's been keeping us busy. I should as well just briefly acknowledge the work we did to try and keep the community together with the on track sessions, and thanks to all of you who participated. Some of you were on camera to tell your stories and it was those went really well. The feedback was tremendous. So thank you for that. So what else to cover here? So I think if we go ahead, Dave, in the slides.
Just before we move forward, there's still a couple of hands up, and I don't want to just unhand them. I just want to see if there are questions or something, because there was a few hands and now there are 2 hands. So I just want to make sure if somebody has something specific, I just want to. Good.
Lisa or Heidi, are you guys okay? Are those hands? Are they votes?
We're down to 1 hand.
Down to 1 hand.
All right. Well, maybe okay. I'll just, there we go. All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay. If there was something we missed, I just didn't want to shut you down. That's all.
Great. Dave, do you mind moving us forward in the slides? Yep. That's great. So we're gonna talk about CADs in a minute. I think I've covered all this. So I'm going to introduce Kelsey Bennett. Kelsey joined our board last year, and she has been, before she was on the board, she was working with us. She's one of our volunteers, and was working with us on what we call Project January, our Return to Snow program. And so she's taken over the leadership of that group this year. And I think I'll turn it over to Kelsey to talk about where we are on Return to Snow.
Thanks, Paul. I think we're just good for one more slide, Dave, if you don't mind. Perfect. Great. I want to acknowledge that it's not just me working on this. I have been working with an amazing team with Project January. So a big thank you to Brenda Brooks, Monica Singh, Bruce Bond, Bruce Myrick, apologies, John Coy, and Kathy Saunders. It's a pleasure to work with all of you on this. We have good news for this year. The season is a go. We will be moving ahead with planning for full programs this season. We've made a lot of progress since last year in terms of provincial protocols, and we have good reason to be optimistic for the season. Project January is currently updating Return to Snow protocols that will include safety measures and protocols for programming and vaccine requirements. This will be released in the next few weeks. We've been in discussions with industry and hills, gaining an understanding about individual hill requirements and sharing our approach to the season with positive feedback from industry and partner hills. We are also working with the technical committee to develop and integrate COVID-specific briefing for instructors. And as a final note, in order for the season to really get off the ground, volunteer registration is critical. So just a reminder for everyone to please register if you haven't already. It's going to be a great season and so meaningful to be back on the snow for everyone. So thank you. Paul, I'm not sure if you wanted the opportunity.
Yeah, that's great, Kelsey. Yeah, maybe what I'll do, because I think when we're always mindful that this is the most important thing we're doing. Like, we're here for there's nothing more important than getting back on the snow and getting our athletes skiing. So I think what we'd like to do is maybe just, if there are any questions here, feel free to put them in the chat. maybe before we move on, I'll just see if there's anything in the chat. And if you want to, I'm not sure how many people would want to jump in on this, but maybe if you want to raise your hand, if you want to ask a question that way, we'll call on you as well. Well, while I'm letting people think about that, the one thing, Kelsey, you might have said this, but the one difference I've picked up, Walter, I heard this from Walter a bit earlier in terms of where we are and how we're feeling about things, is everyone on that committee, you know, it was hard last year. And I haven't been at the recent meetings for the committee, but I was at the first one, and it was just the tone was so positive and people were so dedicated to getting back. And so I think there's just a great optimism around skiing this year. So it's a really, really positive tone. So I see a question from JF and Patricia. Kelsey, do you want to take that, or you want me to take a crack in the chat?
I mean, so in terms of that, so anybody that's under 12 that aren't vaccinated at this time, they can still participate in the program. If that's what the question is for that one. Does that answer your question?
I think, and maybe just to expand on that, Kelsey, we had a pretty good chat about this. I mean, one thing is that our protocols will always stay current with public health requirements, so they'll be fairly dynamic. So if the requirement changes and doses become available for under 12, that'll be required. Mm-hmm. We have a little bit of time before our season starts, so let's be hopeful about that. But otherwise, I think Kelsey, what I got from the committee in our evaluation of this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was that the vaccinations were part of the protection that we were looking for, and that there would be other protocols that would help us ensure safety for our athletes. So if you think about it, we were ready to go last year without vaccines, right? It was more the surrounding concerns that were a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think you almost have 3 lines of defense of 3 lines before that, right? There's like screening, there's protocols, and there's screening when you're there's pre-screening and then screening when you arrive on site, and then the protocols as well as the vaccine. So yeah, that's not just the only layer of protection for this. So absolutely.
Yeah, right. And JF's got a second question about families that come to the programs. Will they be allowed in? I think the answer here, Kelsey, do you want me to take a crack?
Sure. Yeah.
I will. I think the answer is yes. Subject to any kind of spacing considerations we might have, but if anyone that's over 12, and I think in this case it would be parents we're talking about, will have to be registered and show proof of vaccination in the system, and so that they have to clear that hurdle for us. But otherwise, there's a good comfort level that. Along with the other safety protocols we have in place, we should be fine.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it tends to be facility specific too. Like we'll also just follow their requirement for that. So it's not just a blanket for every single location.
Yeah, that's right. We have the committee, the other thing, just where we have our own facilities, we have invested in significantly actually in some advanced air purification. So there's going to be a couple of units at Craigleith and one over at Beaver Valley, for example. So we're keeping up with the latest in terms of we had actually bought a lot of PPE and basically safety materials last year. So we had done that, and we still have that, but now we also have some pretty fancy filters. That's great. Okay. Excellent. Are there any hands up?
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay. All right, well, I think we can keep moving. Chris is going to go, is going to be leaving. Chris is going to have to leave us at some point. I just, a point of hygiene, just on this one. I'm not sure how, this has been I think an important topic. So talking about working more closely with CADs has been an important topic. I think if we get a sense here, I'm just going to say this up front, if we get a sense here that if for some reason it's very divided, the board has always said, as we've opened up discussions on this, that we're going to respect the views of membership. The board is supportive of that we can be stronger and better by having a tighter affiliation with CADs, but we are very purposeful about having the support of membership in doing so. We think that matters. So we are given the problems we're having with voting. I'm just going to say up front, we're going to be pretty careful on this one. And if there's a challenge around, say, anonymity and the way we're doing polling doesn't work for people, what I'm going to suggest is that you let us know that's a challenge for you. Just not let everyone know in the chat, but just maybe send an email to Kathy. We would just like to take that into account as we consider a vote on this at the end. This is, we didn't anticipate the challenge with the polling, so we're doing our best to adjust. Chris, do you want to say anything on top of that before we go on and talk about how we're thinking about CADs?
No, I think it's important for any vote, but especially votes where there may be some significant for and against, and some significant discussion that it be anonymous. So
yeah.
The fact that we don't have polling, that's a bit of an issue. So we need to work around that somehow.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe what I'll try and do is kind of gauge the. I don't know. By the way, anyone's view on this is respected. There's no. I'll say this up front. There's no right or wrong. If somebody, if the board thinks we should do this, the reason very genuinely we're talking about it and want to have a membership vote is so we can get it right. And so everyone's views are respected. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to agree. And if you don't agree, then it's absolutely fine. That's the organization we are. We're all friends. We respect everybody's views. So I'll say that. But if we'll kind of read the temperature as we go through this, and we'll maybe see how people are feeling about it. Potentially even opening up the discussion for people to come off mute. So the background here for folks is that we have been for quite some time now. We've been thinking about how could we be stronger by formalizing an affiliation with CADs. And the way the board was viewing it was that we are, we're only in Ontario, we're focused on youth. What we do is very special, but there's this whole community of adaptive seeing around us that we could be more formally a part of. Really point two here is that we're always conscious that we are doing everything we do, or most everything we do, through volunteer time. So if we can combine efforts, really good example here, our members of our technical committee and others have spent a lot of time on our DNCC training. It's brilliant, and it's taken a lot of effort. As we think about the future on that training, CADS has done a lot of work. They got a grant from Autism Speaks, and they've got a very promising educational or skills based module available. It would probably be great for us, right? So we think about things like that and say, we don't have it. Couldn't we do it? Couldn't we do it together? The reassurance for everybody is that we'll always do the best thing for track 3 and for our athletes. And what we heard through the sessions is that people never wanted us to lose that. They didn't want us to be. They wanted us to still be special, to still be track 3. So there's no. Chris had said to me at one time, there's no way that we would risk the goodwill of volunteers to do this. So that's really what we're thinking about. So Dave, can you go to the next slide? we ran 3 sessions effectively. The first was an on-track session where we invited John Ross, who's the chair of CADS, and Christian Raab, who's the executive director, to join us for one of our on-track sessions. We did that in July. A really good talk, actually, really good discussion. Some of the feedback we got is reflected in the points on this slide. We also heard from some of our members, and this was totally respected, that they didn't think it was right that we didn't have our own conversation first. And so we tried to double back on that and say, okay, I hear you, we get you, let's do that. So we ran 2 subsequent sessions, one in August, one in September, where you didn't get really strong turnout on this. I think we had about, middle teens for the first one and maybe low 20s in the second. So it wasn't oversubscribed, I'll put it that way, but nonetheless, it was quality input, quality discussion, and some of these points that we've reflected here were made. People really valued our history, they valued our community. I think one of the quotes from the July session actually was, "We are a family," right? You don't want this to be lost, and we heard that loud and clear. We heard about quality. Parents and volunteers really, really value who we are now and what we do. We heard about how great full days are. They don't want this changed. We heard their training, which is kind of, we think about it as our product was already excellent, and they don't want this compromised. So we also heard there was some trust in the board to do the right thing, and we with people, we were talking about some of the back office examples. People weren't that interested in things like insurance. We heard you kind of on that. You kind of said, okay, great, we get that you may have to think about that. But it wasn't really front and center for most of our volunteers and families, and we understand. So those were some of the things we heard. Dave, can you flip to the next slide? So our approach here, the team that's worked on this. So it's a few of us from the board. George, Chris, and myself have spent time on this, and we have also had help from 2 in the technical committee, Sarah Stefanak, Glenn Clark, as well as Jack Sim, who's kind of done everything in his time with Track 3. And so that's been the team that's been working on this. And we think that basically our view is that we are still Track 3, and we would still be carry on as Track 3. We would just have an affiliation with CADS, and we would be able to be part of a bigger community, offer them some things we do really well. So if you got a good example here is for those of you that were at the July session, you heard John Ross say that he thought our level 1 training was fantastic, and was something that they could learn from in the CADS environment. So the technical committee that's been meeting on both sides have really, we've been finding that there's an opportunity for us to contribute something more broadly to the community. We see this as a non-binding agreement, so we stay like we will remain our own legal entity, and we can basically we can work with this. And if it's not working, which isn't what we expect, to be clear, then we can just pull back. Simple example: we're on their insurance program, we sign up for that, and there's a problem with it. The next year we go back to having our own insurance for liability, and so on, right? So there's nothing about this that locks us in. And I guess finally, we just think we will be successful if we take the best of who we are and what we do, and we contribute to the larger community at the same time. So maybe I'll stop there, and I'll look for hands for people that want to jump in with a comment, or if I see some hands come up, I'll ask you to come off mute and make your point.
Oh, there's a comment in the chat.
I'm not seeing it. Can you share it?
Yeah,
I'm not.
it says from Mike Robinson, this has been very informative. Unfortunately, I have to drop off in a few minutes. I have another meeting, so I was really looking forward to the CADS discussion.
Okay.
That was it.
All right. Thank you.
Paul, one thing I'll point out is you've missed a discussion on email here. Kelsey had a great idea that we could do a Google form to conduct the vote in an anonymous manner. We've created that Google form and it is ready to go to be able to conduct this in an anonymous manner. Kathy, you should have access to it to scrutineer.
That's excellent. Thank you, George. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thanks.
I'm looking for hands up. Does anyone have any points they want to make on concerns, support? Okay, I'm not seeing it.
So sorry, maybe I can ask maybe a slightly different question because I'm relatively new, let's say the last 5 years, but I gathered track 3 split from CADS at one point many years ago. I'm just wondering if that issue, and I don't need to know the issue why they split, but I'm just curious, is whatever happened being resolved and that's not a foreseeable problem in the future?
Hey, Jim, thanks for the question. I'll invite Kathy if she wants to give any perspective. What I would say, Jim, is that, I've been involved for about 20 years, and which makes me a rookie measured against some of the folks on the call. We have such long-serving volunteers, but I'm aware that over time there's been some friction, and I think we've really just grown past it, and I think it started with. We had a lot of our people that were involved with CADS as well. So that was helpful, right? People that were CADS members were also track 3 members. We did some things together. We've for a long time been doing the spinal cord injury day. So we all got along there, and quite a few of our people volunteered at veterans programs, both in Canada and in Colorado and for US vets. So people like Austin and Steve Jones and Glenn Clark and Bruce Bond and Jesse Bond. And so a lot of people, and they were all in it together. The Canadian contingent was track 3, very well respected from their skills and how they operated. And the rest of, a lot of the other, or I guess all the other folks from Canada would have been affiliated with CAD. So that helped in the relationship. So I think a lot of things in the last 10 years have really helped bring us together. And finally, Jim, just in terms of doing the work, I think we demystified a lot of this, right? So in Chris and George and I did these benchmark calls where we got set up with the programs across the country. So we talked to people in BC and Alberta and Nova Scotia and Ontario and around, and we didn't. Some of the trade-offs we thought we might have to make to work more closely with CADS, we just became satisfied that we didn't have to even make them. We were still track 3. We were just joining a national organization, but we would maintain our uniqueness and the parts that we know that people value so much. So I think that was it. I hope that helps answer your question.
Yeah, Paul, it's Jack here. If I can just jump in real quick as one of the
sure, Jack.
people that have been around through it, and Kathy being the other, so she can jump in too if she wants. The rift became one of those things that's really kind of stupid. It was egos that got in the way and created a fight that didn't need to be a fight. And then it became a bit of a Hatfields and McCoy deal. Nobody really knew why the two organizations didn't get along, but something in the history was that we shouldn't get along. So I think we took a long time to get to the point now where we're getting along, and we know what we can benefit from in getting together.
Yeah, that's great, Jack. Thanks. The one thing that I pick up through some of this, and with all respect to everyone before us, but there has at times been a proprietary nature to what we've done. And it's understandable to a point, right? Because we sunk thousands of volunteer hours into our own training. So for us, I just said, well, if we can make CADS better by offering our level 1 to them, I think we should, but it's, maybe that's too light an approach, but I think generally our outlook is to be non-proprietary. We're a not-for-profit. We're serving a unique community that have very special needs. And so we've kind of taken away the proprietary mindset, if that's what part of it was before. Hey, Paul Dowsett, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Paul. Jack kind of beat me to it with the Hatfields and McCoys. That was exactly what I was going to remember. I've been around as long as Jack has, and yeah, there was a mythical rift back there. Nobody alive today remembers why it was on both sides, our side and CAD's side. So it's, as we've all said, it's just time to move on.
Right. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
I understand, though, George indicated, Paul, that your cat has a question, though. So
I think that was the question. I'm the proxy for the cat.
That's awesome.
Just
Thank you.
raising the chat issue, Paul. There's a couple comments in the chat related.
Okay. I'm not sure why my chat's not I'm not dynamic, but
Okay, well,
last
okay,
you gonna
so
go?
this one's,
Yeah.
from Lynette, said I express my support for affiliation
Okay.
ads at the July on track, and my support continues, but thank you for
Okay.
the important discussion. And then there's a question from Greg asking, what will the track 3 season be like up at Caledon?
Okay. Hey, Greg, can I connect with you offline on that one? I mean, I think I'd be happy to chat with you. We're just like every other program. We're optimistic.
Yes.
That okay? Awesome.
Yes.
I'm heading down there tomorrow actually to check it out. So, but we're fully confident that everything will be a go there. But I'm happy to chat with you offline. Thanks for the question.
I just want to pop in and say that I'm going to vote for the story that Jack and Paul, and I support that story of CADS.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Appreciate it. Okay, so Dave, can I have you advance this to the next slide? So we are, and maybe what I'll do first, just Kathy, how are we going to launch the pool? Maybe I'm asking George. How's that gonna? How are we gonna launch the Google form?
Sorry, Paul, there's a hand up. I don't know if the hand up is up or.
Yeah, Mark's got a hand up.
Mark, go ahead.
Mark's on mute.
Mark's on mute.
Unmute yourself. How's that?
That's good. We got you.
Okay, so I want to comment on the CADS issue, piping up finally, maybe when it's put to rest, but we talked about division in the end between track 3 and CADS at one particular point in time. What I see in an association with CADS is a division between the sit skiers and the balance of the track 3 program that we attend to. So are we creating a division that one part of our group would associate with this other national group and maybe see some benefits from it and leave our other, participants behind and create a division? That's just my comment. I don't know why I would leave it at the table at this particular point, but
no, hey Mark, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a point of view. But I don't quite understand it. Do you mean that the track 3 sit skiers would be working closely with the CAD sit skiers, and that would be the biggest part of it? Is that what you mean?
Well, I was saying we're creating division within ourselves because not all of us are sit ski participants.
They actually don't. They do much more than sit ski. They're just, frankly, they're much like us, and in fact, they do visually impaired, so they have a bit more scope than we do.
Okay, so
yeah,
I've just experienced the spinal cord injury days, and
okay, yeah, no, they're frankly just like us, right? Like I spoke about their Autism Speaks, like they just like us. They have a significant part of their population that's not. They're not sit skiers, and so honestly, their population looks a lot like us. The difference being that they don't graduate kids. You don't age out in their program, but that's really the only difference from a programming standpoint.
Okay,
yeah,
and I've always put my support behind those days, the spinal cord injury days, and thinking that the two groups would naturally be together. But judging from, you know, the end comments about how we were together before and there was a divisiveness, was that internal? That was ourselves that could have driven that because of where we wanted to go. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
But
Sure. Hey, Mark, thanks for
Put it to
speaking up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul,
I'll just jump in quick if I can. Oh, I see a number of hands up. Sorry. Let me put my hand up. I'll get to the end of the line.
Yeah, I think Greg had his hand up first.
Greg, you had your hand up first. Did you want us to offer something on this? I don't think so. I think I'll go on to Paul Dowsett.
Thanks, Paul. Just in response to Mark, absolutely, CADS is much more than just sit skiing, as you say. They work with cognitive and communications and developmental challenges, as well as snowboarding, as well as stand-up, as well as sit-down skiing, all the varieties. Also, there's also something in this myth, in this historic myth as well, that seems to be misplaced. The idea that we were together before and split apart. No, we were never together before in my memory. The rift happened, again, for reasons I don't even recall. The rift happened even though we weren't together. I think that's correct, right, Jack?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Jack, thank you, Paul. Jack, do you want to add anything, or did Paul take your point?
No, I just add a little more to that, but Paul is exactly right. There, you know, at one point we were all CADS members, but it just was not a total come together, as Paul sort of explained. So, and the other thing, just back to the point where we're talking about what CADS does and what we do. I think, you know, you, Paul Rogers, touched on the committee that's doing some stuff, and I won't get into the details on it, but we are talking with CADS about how they teach, what they teach, and what track 3 teaches and how they teach it. And we're finding that a lot of stuff is very much the same. It's just packaged a little bit differently. So we're very much on the same training, the same student population as CADS is. And I think that we don't have to worry that it's going to put a split in anything, whichever way it goes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So if there are no questions, can people just drop their hands on the chat? Or on the
George, while people are dropping their hands, George, am I good to I'm going to make the motion, but am I good to put this link into the chat, which will launch the poll via a Google Doc?
I've got a shortened version that's already ready to go. I'm just waiting to hit send whenever you make.
Okay, cool. So I'll leave it to you. Okay. Okay. All right. So based on the discussion, I feel comfortable making this motion, and I thank everyone who spoke up for speaking up. We've had actually a lot of good dialogue on this over the last few months, so that's terrific. So the motion is as follows. I move that the Ontario Track 3 Adaptive Sports Association, Ontario Track 3, may affiliate with Canadian Adaptive Snow Sports, CADS, while maintaining our existing legal structure and resulting independent governance, which enables continued autonomy in programming, culture, fundraising, and brand. So in the comments, I'll look for a first on the motion.
I'll move.
I've got Heidi as a first and Brad as a second. I'm sorry if I'm okay.
Yeah.
We recorded that. I think Chris may have had to leave, so I'm just going to make sure I've got that. So CADS is Heidi.
No, I've got it, Paul. I'm still here.
Oh, you got it? Okay. All right, great. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
All right, super. All right. So now, George, I will ask that you launch the form. There it is. So to confirm for people, we're doing it this way to confirm or to allow for anonymity. I don't know if we'll need it, but it's certainly, we feel better about it. So that's our poll.
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, you do have to provide an email for it, and that's just so that we know that people aren't voting twice. We do have to prove that. So that's why there is an email address there. It will be kept confidential.
How are you doing the poll again?
We are actually doing it. You have to go to the chat, and George has just shared a link. So the poll's being done by a Google form. If anyone has trouble with it, I think it's fair to maybe just let us know, and you could email Kathy, who's our scrutineer, your vote, if there's any troubles with the form. Confirming that I'm not voting. I'm showing that we have 22 responses to the question.
There's one direct message in the chat that's supporting it.
Okay.
I
So
don't know if that's
maybe what we ought to do is just give people a countdown on this. Let's give people 10 more seconds, and we'll. This is a pretty slick voting mechanism, frankly.
I'm not able to sign into it for some reason, George.
Okay. We have 24 votes, and I think I can say that this motion carries because we have an outstanding response. Actually, there's basically 96% in favor, and this does not take into account some proxies. So that's excellent.
You can add two more, Paul, through the chat.
Yeah. Okay, so this motion carries. That's excellent. The board, it's an important topic. So I think that I can say on behalf of the board that we really appreciate the support, and we'll count on us to do the right thing always for track 3 first as we carry on with this. So, but very, very, very pleased to have the support and membership on this topic.
Paul, just want to confirm I can close responses on that.
Let's close responses. Yeah, the motion carries. Excellent. Hey, Dave, can you move us ahead to the next slide?
Absolutely. So Dave and I are going to pick it up here a little bit. I want to try and get us out of here by 7:30 if I can. The final topic from an update standpoint is really just to plant a seed with all of you. You may have heard, if you were at some of the on-track sessions or reading the newsletter, that we're turning 50 next year, and it's Dave Umbach's calling it our golden anniversary. I guess it is. So the logo on the left, which says established 1972, maybe it should be gold, but anyway, we're going to be 50, and we think it's a tremendous opportunity for us. We have a couple of things in mind to celebrate 50. One is really to remind ourselves of our great history and renew our values. So Dave Umbach's going to be leading. Dave Umbach, Chris needs to get back into the meeting. Can I ask you to take? I just let him in. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So these are two really, I think, exciting things to celebrate our past, and this is a little bit born in the idea that, when we had Dave and Tracy at our first on-track session talking about our history, it was like, wow, we have great stories, and so let's tell those stories and let's celebrate where we're coming from. And at the same time, let's do a little bit of work on our values and just make sure we're current. The world's changing around us.
I'm really proud of who we are from an inclusion standpoint. It stands as our number one value, but is our definition broad enough? Are we doing all the right things? So we're going to take a look at our values as part of this as well. And it's going to be a member, basically a member participation. Like, this will work if we can get membership excited to help us do it, right? So members stepping forward with old photos and old stories, members stepping forward to participate and tell us what they think about our values and where we can be better. So we can, the next 50 years, we're in a pretty great place now, but we feel like if we do this right, we'll be more aware of where we're coming from, and we'll feel like we're on really solid ground in terms of the fundamental understandings we have and with each other and how we operate. So that's the first part of it. Hey, Dave, do you want to add anything quickly on that?
Yeah, super quick. Yeah, as Paul said, we talked about this before, and there's actually I was thinking when we had the conversation with Tracy around that time, I was thinking it'd be great to write like a book about it. And then Kathy reminded me that there is a book that was written some time ago, and I got a copy from the office, and I have it behind me saying "Changing Lives: The Magic of Skiing." So that was a long time ago. And I think the thing that will make this really powerful is, Paul said, is we'll reach out to the membership, and we want to get as many stories, photos, home movies, whatever we have together, and really put together some kind of a celebration piece for the upcoming celebration of 50 years. So the more input we can get from folks, we'll set something up that you can contribute. We definitely want to get as much as we can. It'll also help with the next piece that Paul's talking about around capital campaign and funding.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dave. That's great. So the second area is we got to raise some money. We've got some old facilities, and we need to renew them. And so we've already got some planning underway for this, but to pull it off, we're going to need some money. So we're going to launch a capital campaign and brand it around our 50th year, and we're going to hit up everybody. We're going to hit up trusts and foundations and corporates and governments, and we got a lot of money to raise. So we're gonna do a great job on this. I've been working on a subcommittee along with Dave and Fayez. We're getting some help from Glenn Hayworth, who's, you'll find it in a minute, is leaving our board, but is going to stay very engaged as a volunteer and continue to help us. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm not making a plea for money here. I just want you all to be aware that we're gonna need you as champions and advocates to do this and to be able to pull it off. Excellent. I'm going to keep going because I'm cognizant of time, and we have some important business. So the board of directors, we just need to do some votes to renew our board. We have 2 existing members leaving the board. I want to thank both Judy and Glenn for the service they've provided as part of our board. And I want to, they've both been terrific, actually, and made a difference for our organization. And I think I think they'll both continue to be supporters of our great organization. We have 2 directors that are end of term who are standing for re-election. That's Alexander Wilkes and George Anderson. And we have, I guess, half a dozen of us that have got remaining term on the board. Dave, do you mind going to the next slide? So those are the continuing directors. I think we can keep going. Okay, so this is where we are going to have some votes. Both the re-elected directors and the directors standing for election need votes. So I don't think we have pulled off a quick, George, we haven't got a poll on this one, have we? Or are we okay to do raise hands on this one? Or do people, is in anonymity? I'm checking with my technical gurus.
I can look away if people don't want me to see them vote against me.
Yeah, I think we'll do raised hands here. So raising hands in support. It does not say. Yeah, okay, let's vote. Yeah,
Just counting through right now, so. just wondering-
great. People are getting really good at this. Terrific. Kathy or Dave, just let me know when you think we've got enough. I want to keep us moving.
Yeah, we've got enough. There's 20 in there right now.
Okay, excellent. George, thank you for your continuing service to the board. Can you go to the next slide, Dave? And we'll have people clear their hands at the same time.
Yeah, if we could just, everyone clear their hands.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, next, Alexander Wilks. So Alex has served a 2-year term, and he's interested in continuing, and we're interested in that he does so as well. For those of you who know Alex, don't know Alex, he's I think I didn't introduce George, but I figured he needs no introduction. Alexander is a volunteer. He works as part of our great Sunday program at Craigleith. Alexander's a lawyer. He gives us some great versatility on some important legal matters, which inevitably come up. He's been very supportive of Chris and will continue to be. So let's have hands raised in support of Alexander.
We have more than enough there. We've got
We're good. Okay.
yeah, 20.
Excellent. Alexander will be a good continuing member of our board. I appreciate that. Dave, do you mind going to the next
Before we
screen?
move on, let's just clear hands before we move on.
Clear hands, sorry. Yep. Brad, you still got your hand up? Are we good?
There's still 2 hands up.
Still 2 hands up?
Yeah. I'm going to, I don't know if those are questions or.
Barb, you've got your hand up. Are you anticipating the next one, or Barb and Bud? Could you guys take your hands down? Barb's hand's still up.
Should have stepped away.
Okay.
Maybe I was lower.
Maybe she stepped away. Okay.
There
I
we
think
go.
we'll probably be okay. All
Thank
right,
you.
Dave, let's go to the next slide. So Madison's on the call with us tonight. Madison is a longtime volunteer for Track 3. Previously, is a course conductor, had a very significant role on our technical committee. She's a great friend of the program. She understands our mission as well as anyone. And I'm just delighted that she stepped forward to be on the board. It's a big win for Track 3 to have her helping us in a significant way. I see lots of hands. Are we good, Dave?
We are now
Okay.
at 19. Yeah.
Madison,
Excellent.
you're allowed to vote for yourself.
Welcome, Madison. Just fantastic. Okay, will folks clear their hands, please?
Yeah, I got 19. We're good.
You guys are getting good at this.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
2 more hands. Got to go down.
Jack and Barb, clear your hands.
One.
Jack's working on it. While Jack's clearing his hand, if you go to the next slide, Dave, that's
There we
good.
go.
Okay. Next slide. So happy to recommend Richard Hammond to the board. Richard's a lawyer. He actually has a specialization in construction law, which we think will be terrific for us as we go undertake some of the work that I talked about earlier to renew our facilities. He's a very committed, he's a lawyer as well, committed volunteer service in his background. He's a member at Beaver Valley, which is a critical club for us. Really excited to have Richard's interest in our board. So I'll ask people to raise their hands in support of Richard. God, you guys are good. You're good, or supper's on, one or the other, or both.
I'm getting 19 so far.
Excellent. Welcome to the board, Richard. That's terrific. I'm going to say that's carried. Yeah, that's great. Excellent.
Clear hands. Yeah, everyone could just clear their hands. That'd be good.
Clear hands. Dave, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay, so just wanted to open it up for any questions, discussion that people had about what they've heard tonight, or things they're thinking about for the future. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll keep an eye.
There's a hand up, Paul.
Okay, good. I'm not seeing it because my view doesn't. I have to...
Yeah, Val.
Oh, Val. Hey, Val, go ahead. Val, I've got you on mute. Do you want to offer something?
No, I didn't. I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
No problems. Good to see you. All right. Heidi, thanks for coming out. We appreciate you. Excellent. So Dave, I'll have you go to the next slide. So just asking for any other business from the floor. You guys are really expert now at raising your hand. Does anyone want to raise any new business? George, go ahead, please.
Only because you've thanked everyone else, I'll say I'd like to thank Paul Rogers for his contribution this year as our president, for all his hard work hosting these meetings, hosting all of our board meetings, signing all of the checks, doing all of the relations that need to happen, and spending so much of his time for this organization. I just want to say thank you, Paul. You're a great part of this organization, and we couldn't do it without you.
George, thanks. It means a lot coming from you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. It's a pleasure. Real pleasure.
Yeah,
Richard's got his hand up. Hey, Richard, go ahead.
No, just applause.
Oh, I'm sorry, applause. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's great. Okay, Dave, I think we'll go to the next slide. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the 2020 AGM of Track 3 at 7:30 on Thursday, October 21st, 2021. So you will use the chat to have a first, which is coming from JF. Thank you, JF. Looking for a second in the chat. And we've got it from Mark. Mark, thank you. That's excellent. Perfect. I guess we'll look for just a quick show of hands to support the adjournment. I won't belabor this.
Hands are going up with fury.
With a fury. If you guys, one final plug, if you have not completed your volunteer registration yet, I think it was Lynette was asking about that earlier. Kathy's worked really hard at getting it up. So if you're a volunteer and you haven't yet registered, or you're talking to folks that are volunteers that aren't here tonight, please give them a text or a call and encourage them to do so. You know, that's always the hardest thing we do, right? Is matching athletes to our great volunteers. So anyway, appreciate everybody. Thank you for making the time tonight, and thanks for all you do for Track 3. And we'll see you all soon. We'll see you on snow in January. Thanks everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.